Um, Hi, my name's Zoe Miller, and I'm going to be starting off my presentation with a quote from Christina Rossetti's 1862 poem, Goblin Market. "Lie close," Laura said, pricking up her golden head. "We must not look at goblin men. We must not buy their fruits. Who knows upon what soil they fed their hungry, thirsty roots? Come by," call the goblins, hobbling down the glen. "Oh," cried Lizzie, "Laura, Laura, you should not peep at goblin men." Um, in the poem, Rossetti describes two young sisters, Lizzie and Laura, being menaced by animal hybrid goblin merchant men who pressured them in broken English to come buy their exotic fruits. One of the sisters, Laura, is tempted by the fruit and pays the goblins for it with a lock of her golden blonde hair with disastrous consequences. The process of eating the fruit takes on a sexual, sensual quality in Rossetti's writing. And afterwards, Laura is addicted to the magical fruit as though it's a drug. Yielding it to the goblins' demonic temptations leads to her ruin. The scene of the strange alien fruit market would have been a recognizable one to British urban dwellers at the time of Goblin Market's publication. However, it wasn't goblins who sold oranges on the street. It was simply whichever group of immigrants was newly arrived and poorest. During Rossetti's lifetime, the orange vendors in England shifted from being comprised primarily of Eastern European Jews to newer, poorer waves of Irish immigrants. The image of a fruit vendor would have been synonymous with poverty and ethnic otherness as it was defined then. Discovering this hidden meaning to Goblin Market inspired me to look at other depictions of immigrants and of racial and ethnic otherness in England around this time. In my research, I examined Goblin Market and other works depicting immigrants from the 1700s to the 1800s in England. Some of these pieces, like Goblin Market, use fantasy scenarios as a metaphor or euphemism for immigrants. The most famous of this type is Dracula. Other pieces of media are explicit in their depictions, like political cartoons. In my research, my goal was to figure out the specific anxieties that drove this kind of work. Goblin Market and works similar to it are xenophobic. But by this, I don't mean the usual use of the words, a word like xenophobic as in hating immigrants. Instead, I feel that it conveys a literal fear of the alien, fear of the other. Goblin Market is a fear-driven work. So my research goal was to discover what the specific fears were. And I found three primary fears around what immigration to England would entail. I'm going to bring up my keynote. So this image represents the first fear. It's a 1824 cartoon by Henry Heath titled An Irish Tilting Match, and it represents the fear of lowered quality of life and chaos in the streets. So just like petty disruption and unpleasantness. The cartoon depicts a group of very caricatured, very racially othered Irish women tossing British police officers helplessly over their heads in the street. And it represents this fear of just immigrants being not able to be controlled in the way that English people are, being unpleasant. There's a bad bad sounds, bad smells, bad behavior generally associated with immigrants in works that tie into this fear. Goblin Market has a little bit of this with the goblins yelling at the girls, come by, come by. So the next fear is the sexual fear, the fear of British individuals, men and women, being raped or seduced, or taken advantage of in some way, and ending up in these racially inappropriate relationships, these sort of miscegenation-inducing relationships. So this is a cartoon by William Hogarth. It's from 1732, and it depicts a young British girl who has become the mistress of a Jewish man, and he's very Orientalized. You can see that he has a slave in a turban in his home in England, and images from the Old Testament framed on his walls. He's very much culturally other and of the East, you know. And the caption reads, "Once a whore she ever more will be so." So there's this idea of corruption by racial and cultural others. And oh gosh, hang on. And the final fear is the political fear, the fear that people who aren't English will take over the English government. This is expressed pretty immediately in Bram Stoker's Dracula. In Dracula, Jonathan Harker goes to Transylvania to sell the Count a house in London, and when he starts exploring the castle, he discovers that Dracula has been studying English law and literature, and when he asks Dracula why he's been studying this, he replies that he doesn't want to be considered an inferior when he goes to England. Because he is a noble in Transylvania, he would like to be treated as a noble in England. The quote is, "I've been master so long, I would be master still." And of course, in Dracula's case, being master isn't just being someone's social inferior, which is the horrifying in itself, from a certain view. It's also being free to prey upon the populace. So it's this fear of being ruled over by people coming from somewhere else. So yeah, I was motivated by noticing this fear of immigrants in Rossetti's piece, and narrowed down the fears to these three individual ones. And in a lot of works, there's a lot of overlap. Although Dracula is the political fear, there's some of the sexual fear worked into it. Goblin Market has a combination of the sexual fear and the fear of petty disruption in the streets. It's really mixed together, but they're all made up of these three elements. Thank you so much for watching my talk. I hope you have a great day. That's my show. I'll see you.